Were you the Andrew Tate fan that said you wanted to debate me on depression?
Yeah, that's me.
Okay, I've had debates on depression quite a lot now. So, are you going to bring me something new and spicy?
Yeah, I think it's new. I don't think anyone else has brought it up yet. I think that the Andrew Tate fans that you've debated, I think that they're kind of right in some sense, but they don't really know why, or they don't really have anything to back it up with. But I think I have like I think I've like thought about it more.
You're an Andrew Tate fan, but you feel like the Andrew Tate fans I've debated thus far are just not really very good at articulating their position. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it has to do with them being probably too young to really. I don't know. I feel like they haven't researched it enough.
Okay, is it okay? I mean, you don't have to tell me how old you are, but would you want to tell me how old you are? Because a lot of the Andrew Tate fans I debate end up being like 15.
Yeah, I'm 19.
Okay. All right, so you want to talk about depression. You say you're going to bring me something new. What's up?
Yeah, so it's kind of just like a new perspective on the stuff that you've talked about with the past Andrew Tate fans that you've debated with. So I think that depression is not real, and it also is real in the sense that uh, it's kind of like gender. How you say it's like a social construct. I feel like depression is also a social construct because I think that if you believe in depression, then depression is real. And if you don't believe in depression, then depression is not real.
Do you think there are any people who genuinely don't believe in depression and think that they can just kind of work through it and go to the gym, but they still are depressed?
That could definitely be the case, but I don't I don't think that's really I don't think the exception is the rule.
Okay, I agree with that, that the exception is not necessarily the rule, but we need to make sure we're being clear about the differences between like having depression and then being depressed. So I think a lot of the times people, because colloquially you'll say like, "Oh, I'm really depressed today," when you're really sad. Being depressed, being sad, can oftentimes be changed via mindset, exercise, etc. Having depression, the actual medical diagnosis of depression, it's not so simple. And this is why I brought up to the last guy about the brain scans that have shown that you can see the difference in brains of people with depression. Now, it's true that their brains may have reached that point due to a degree of socialization, maybe. And it's also true that having a good mindset can benefit if you have depression for sure. But this notion that it's just like not real, it's bullshit. There's genetic factors that play a role with depression, and we can also see brain scans of people with depression. So obviously, there is some real element of depression that is not just like socially constructed.
Okay, so yeah, about that, about the brain scan thing. So when you brought the brain scan thing to the other Andrew Tate fans, they kind of just like wrote it off and said it was fake or whatever.
Hmm.
But um I personally, when I heard the brain scan thing, I don't even know how that even proves that there's depression. Like, because think of this, like just because like I feel like it's like duh, of course a person's brain looks different if they're feeling more constantly depressed than say a more happy person. Like of course their brain looks different. How does that mean that they're fitting into this thing that we made up called depression? That doesn't make any sense. And also
Well,
it's
because we
like
have created, yes, you're right that we've created the diagnosis depression as humans. We've decided that if you have this symptom, and this symptom, then we are going to diagnose that as this thing that we have decided we're going to call depression. That's true. However, if we're talking about actual brain scans, they do show a lot. So it says in most cases, a static brain scan of a depressed person looks the same as the brain scan of someone without depression. If visible differences do exist, they are usually seen in the frontal cortex or hippocampus. And then depressed brain versus normal brain scan. Blah, blah, blah. It continues to become more advanced as time progresses. At first, researchers only had access to static images. Now, experts can obtain data from PET scans. These tests not only show the structure of the brain, but can also reveal how the brain functions in real time. Researchers find that significant differences exist between a depressed brain and a neurotypical brain through functional brain scans. Rather than focusing on the two regions that appear differently, these functional images show additional variations in the prefrontal cortex, hippocampus. I'm not going to try to say all these fucking words here before I embarrass myself. But there's a list here of different areas of the brain that are affected specifically. What neuroimaging can teach us about depression? All right, let's see. Depression is more than having a bad day or feeling blue. It's a long-lasting experience of low mood, loss of enjoyment in life, loss of interest, low energy, changes in sleep and appetite, and a decrease in one's ability to think clearly.
Can I
I mean,
butt in? Can I?
I'm just trying to give you some more information here, but I admittedly I'm also kind of scrolling through this um to try to find like a more detailed explanation for you.
Yeah. Um, about the different parts of the brain that you mentioned, I want to say that I bet that people, even without even without having clinical depression, I bet that other people have different um like their like parts of their brain that you mentioned are also different, and they're not even clinically depressed. I bet that there's like, everyone has like a different this and different that, but
Yeah, but
so
but there is an understanding of what like a static brain looks like, an average human brain looks like. Um, and you can see the differences of certain brain activity. So like, let's see. Functional MRI studies on patients with major depression demonstrated abnormal inhibitions in the prefrontal cortex. So the prefrontal cortex, I believe, is responsible for decision making.
Mhm.
Let's see.
Yeah, can
Planning
I butt in?
complex cognitive behavior, personality expression, decision making, and moderating social behavior. All of which those things are affected by depression.
Okay. But I bet that there's probably someone in the world with diagnosed clinical depression who hasn't experienced that exact effect on their brain. I feel like it's so much more um, like kind of there's so many variations to it than you say it is. And
Well,
also,
but I'm giving you the other variations. So like you just saying like, well, there might be other people who have that. I don't know what that means. That just sounds like kind of a cope. Because what we do know is that people who are diagnosed with major depression show differences in their brain. So this is another one. Another part of the brain that's affected is the component of the brain, a component of the limbic system. It is involved in processing emotions and behavior regulation. So another part of the brain we can see abnormalities in when we're talking about someone with depression is the part of the brain responsible for emotions. It's not that surprising that people who are depressed tend to feel far sadder and tend to have much more negative emotional experiences.
okay, yeah, I can get that. I get that. But the thing about the brain thing is I don't think that it's just like if they have a problem in their brain, in relation to depression, I don't think that it just like came out of nowhere. Like I think that it could have like this might make me seem like a bad person, but it could have been their fault. Like it could have been habits that they developed over time,
Mm-hmm.
and then to look at their brain and say, "Oh, it's not your fault; it's your brain's fault." I feel like that is very disingenuous to the person because you're taking all responsibility and accountability away from him when he or she or whatever
They
when
may have done something to make
shouldn't
them
take accountability because like habits.
right. So there's different ways that you can have depression or develop depression. So you're right. If there's somebody who's like doing a ton of hard drugs and that causes their brain to get fucked up and then causes them to have depression, um, I guess would be fair in that case to be like, well, you made bad choices which led to you having depression. But whether or not you made a bad choice to give yourself depression somehow, or if you were just born with a genetic or a heritable higher likelihood of developing depression as you grow up, um, maybe you were just in more stressful environments that sort of activated that higher likelihood to begin with. There are a slew of different ways in which a person can develop depression. And whether or not it's directly their fault, quote unquote, or not, it almost doesn't matter because the question isn't, is it their fault? Is it not their fault? It's, is depression real or not? And if we can agree that it is in fact real, then we need to go about talking about treatments for that. So, like, if you've done a bunch of heroin and now you have depression, yeah, that sucks. And but like pointing fingers and being like, you did this to yourself, what does that solve? It doesn't really do anything. They still need treatment, just like the person who didn't do anything wrong and just developed depression because of their genetics.
Well, accountability does matter when you're referring to a person who specifically got clinical depression or whatever, specifically from their own decisions and
But
their
like
own
what? I'm
habits.
sorry to cut you off, but like what decision, right? So like if you're talking about a drug addict, that in and of itself is a disease. That in and of itself is a literal mental problem. This is why I'm so against putting drug addicts in prison. I'm far more in favor of treating drug addiction like a medical problem. And the first step of AA or anything involving getting off drugs is taking accountability. It's going to all the different people that you've hurt and apologizing and being completely honest and open about it. That's like the first step. But whether or not it's their fault, whether or
Yeah,
not they
yeah.
take accountability, is aside the point as to whether or not one, depression is real, which is what you said originally that you said it wasn't, and how you actually treat depression.
Okay, yeah, I can see how you'd think that like admitting your problems to like a doctor or other people in your life, whatever, admitting this flaw that you have when you're scared to admit it, that's taking accountability, right? But at the same time, if you're literally popping a pill every day, uh, I think that's absolute like bull crap. Like that's
Why?
I think that's just as bad as like taking hard drugs that are really bad for you. Like I
I'm
just
gonna
think
give
that's
you a.
really bad.
You seem like a nice guy, so I'm gonna give you a chance to walk that back because I don't think you want to say something that's stupid.
Well, what was wrong with that?
You don't think there's a difference between doing hard drugs every day and taking an antidepressant every day.
Well, I don't mean that pills for depression is going to cause the outcomes that hard drugs are going to cause. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is that you don't know what's going to happen to you the same way as if like maybe if I were to go try to buy some sort of LSD thing from someone, I don't know what kind of effect that's going to have on me because
Wait,
I can't see what's inside the
no, no,
thing or
no, no, no.
whatever.
This is why I wanted to try to give you a chance to walk this back. Antidepressants are FDA approved. So, yes, we do know. We know it's in the drug. We know what to expect from using the drug. We also know if there's any risk of long term side effects or side effects from long term use. There's no evidence to suggest that there is. There's no evidence to suggest that taking an antidepressant every day is somehow is going to lead to some kind of a harm down the line. There's no evidence of this. There is evidence, however, that doing illicit drugs every day leads to a harm. That's actually more likely to make you depressed because you can blunt certain dopamine receptors and whatnot from doing hard drugs or just doing drugs in general, even marijuana. So these are not even comparable at all. One is a long term benefit for your overall well being, the other is a long term detriment to your overall well being. They're apples to oranges.
Well, not necessarily because like the example that I used was LSD, right? And so many people have said that they had a good trip with LSD and it like opened their mind up to things and whatnot.
Hmm?
And it didn't like mess their brains up. There are like a lot of experiences actually that where they take LSD and it's horrible for them.
Hmm.
Uh, but what I'm saying is, I'm not saying like it's not about the like amount that because I don't know the whole specifics of what drug does what. But what I'm like my point is that I don't know I can't see inside that LSD pill or whatever the same way I can't see inside a Prozac or something.
Yeah, but you can make that argument then with any medication. Like, you
Yeah,
can't see
I'm
what's
I'm
inside of
genuinely against
the
all medication.
so you don't take, like, an ibuprofen if you have a headache?
I do, but that's very,
But
I
you
don't
okay,
I don't
but well, hold on, wait,
feel
wait, wait,
any.
because but you can't see what's inside that pill.
That's true, but from my personal experience, I haven't gotten any like any weird side effects from it. I haven't gotten any side effects from it.
And in my personal experience with antidepressants, I only had weird side effects for, like, a week or 2, and then they were gone, and I no longer felt as depressed.
Okay, that's fair. I you know, I'm actually I don't want to sound like a hypocrite, but I'm actually like against all medication, like even if it's ibuprofen, even though I took it when I was dealing with like my teeth, when I got my braces and stuff.
Mhm.
Even like
But why?
that was just like they were hurting really, really bad, so I had to.
No, 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 but
But
yeah, yeah, no, I totally understand, but why are you against just medication in general? Like, that doesn't make any
be-
sense to me. Isn't that one of the benefits of living in current year with the most advanced medical technology we have yet, is that there's now medication that can help with problems?
no, I don't think so. And I'm gonna explain to you why. It's because the reason that I'm so against medication is because, well, primarily it's because I grew up with my dad and my mom who both take pills every day, and my dad he takes an enormous amount of pills every day, and that's not like I see that, and that doesn't look like a fun life at all. And
What kind of pills,
that's
though,
the
do they take? If you don't I mean, maybe that's private or maybe you don't know, and that's fine, but
I because there's no way of really knowing if he didn't take those pills, would things still be the same? I don't know, but
it
from what it
literally
looks
depends
like,
how he got those pills and why he's taking them. So, like, you you're not against every form of medicine, right? Like, you wouldn't be against chemotherapy, right?
yeah, I don't know like anything about chemotherapy, and I yeah, I'm not against chemotherapy, but I don't know anything about it. So,
So you're more against the,
but
like, the swallowing a pill type thing.
yeah, like every day, like as a treatment.
Yeah, so you should just, like, talk to your parents. I mean, like, what do they take the medication for? So, like, I have a totally different experience. I have an experience with seeing family members who, were kind of notoriously on edge a lot growing up, but now that they are on medication, they are so much more relaxed and so much happier and so much easier to engage with. So, like, I've
Okay,
kind of
but
had
at
the
what
exact
cost
opposite
though?
experience. Hmm?
At what cost though? Like
There's not a cost to long-term antidepressant use.
you don't think there's any side effects?
There's side effects at first, as there are with virtually any medication, but those side effects tend to go away.
Okay, but if that person keeps taking those antidepressants or whatever they may be, in the long run, they're building up such a dependence toward the medication that if you were to take away the medication, who knows if they become like a freaking raging psychopath? Like they're literally their being is like dependent on the pill, and that is
Yeah,
like
that's
I
called
feel like
having
that's
but that's called having depression. So, like, if you have a problem with your brain not producing enough neurotransmitters or not being receptive enough to certain neurotransmitters, yeah, you're probably gonna be dependent on medication. But, like, people get so scared about that, and I don't know why. So what? I take an antidepressant every morning and every night before I go to bed. If I were to suddenly stop my antidepressants cold turkey, yeah, I would probably feel really, really miserable for a little while, actually. My brain does have a bit of a dependence there, but having a dependence on a
well, yeah, that's
medication,
no question. There's no question.
right, but having a dependence on a medication is not necessarily a bad thing. I think it's only a bad thing if it's hurting you long term. And in my case, it's not hurting me long term, it's benefiting me long term.
Well, if you're like to me, if you're taking a pill every day for your whole life, I see that as a major, major win for the pharma companies, and I don't know how you could not at least question, like, oh my gosh, like the pharma companies could totally take advantage of me. If I'm relying on this pill every day for the rest of my life, who knows if it's all a lie and they're just literally trying to sell something.
Well, I know that it's not all just a lie and they're not all just trying to sell something because of various different reasons. One, when we're talking about the brain scans and the side effects and symptoms of depression, um, this is corroborated by various different medical institutions. It's not like Big Pharma Inc. came out with like the only study that showed depression in brain scans, and then now they're offering the only medication. So there's that. There's also different medications you can go on. So I don't understand how you would come to that conclusion. I think it takes more mental energy to try and convince yourself that Big Pharma is lying about depression so that they can sell antidepressants. That does not make any sense. It's far more believable that some people have depression. We've seen it happen various times. We can see depression throughout history. Now we can see it in brain scans, and there are different medications that can sometimes help.
Okay, what I mean is there are definitely at least corners that are being cut and that have been cut in order to sell, for example, antidepressants to patients. Because do doctors get paid off of literally helping the patient, or do they get paid when they sell the medication?
They don't get paid to sell quote unquote medication. That's not how it works to be a
That's what I
doctor.
heard.
Okay, wait, chat. Am I like completely clueless here? It's my understanding that doctors are usually paid like a salary. They're not going to be
Well,
like, "Oh, I
yeah,
got
of
a
course,
big bonus
obviously.
today cuz I prescribed this guy antidepressants."
No, that's how it is. That's what I heard at least.
I'm going to
They
look it up.
get paid when they sell you and when they sell you something instead of getting paid when they actually benefit your life. That is true.
Oops.
I
Hold on.
heard that somewhere
No, this is actually
a
not
long time
only
ago.
not true, it's illegal. It is illegal for a physician to receive uh, remuneration for referring a patient for a service that will be paid in whole or in part by a federal healthcare program, or for prescribing or recommending the purchase of a drug that will be paid in whole or in part by a federal healthcare program. Doctors who receive money from drug
Hmm.
makers related to the specific drug prescribe that drug more heavily than doctors without. So I guess if they were related specifically to the drug, but like it's not like doctors in and of themselves are just innately tied to all drugs.
Well, the thing about this is that since we're talking about depression, depression is probably the most like easy to diagnose thing that there is. And so that's why it's easiest to sell those so-called depression patients, whatever. It's so easy to sell them antidepressants. It's because literally anyone can identify with the symptoms of depression and say
So are
that they
you
have
are you
depression.
getting this from like Andrew Tate? How does Andrew Tate where does Andrew Tate come in all this?
No. Oh yeah. I Well, I was just saying Andrew Tate because he says that depression is not real, but I wanted to expand on that because I agree with him. I But I just wanted to expand on it, saying that it's not real and it also is. It just depends on what you think about it. That's why I said Andrew Tate, because he thinks that depression is not real.
Right, but you have to understand that when you see the brain scans, that demonstrates that at least for some people, depression is real. Like it's objective.
Okay, but it's a definition that we made,
No, no,
right? And
no.
we're
The
just
the
like trying to.
term depression we have socially constructed. The problems in relation to brain chemistry is objective. That is there whether humans look or not, whether we know or not. Without human perception, your brain can still have problems and imbalances there. So therefore it's objective. That's what objective means. It's something that exists irregardless of human interpretation or perception. Whether or not I say depression is fake or not has no bearing as to what the brain scans actually show. So if Andrew Tate said depression isn't real, he would just be wrong. And even more so, he's probably lying because I don't think Andrew Tate is stupid enough to just blanket depression is fake kind of thing. If anything, what he probably is talking about is some people who get stuck in a negative mindset telling themselves that they're depressed. Maybe those people can snap out of it and get better and work harder. But depression is not something that can just, or at least usually, just be cured by working hard or just telling yourself it's not real. It's almost like any other ailment. If I break my leg and I keep saying, well, broken legs aren't real, it doesn't really matter. Like, my leg is broken and that's going to have negative results.
Yeah, okay. About that, you said that Andrew Tate is like, did you say that he was like really stupid for saying that depression is
I
not
said I
real?
don't think that he's stupid enough to think that genuinely depression, all in all, is just completely fake. I think most likely when he says depression, he's thinking of the common misconception a lot of people have when they hear depression, which is just, I'm sad, my grandma died, or I'm sad, I didn't get the food that I wanted today. Now I'm quote unquote depressed. But that's not really what it means to have depression.
Okay, but at least hopefully you can agree with this. The main reason why this is a huge thing in today's society, in American society, is like it's not just like a certain amount of people that are showing that they have certain things in their brain which make them classify as being clinically depressed. The problem is that like depression is so widespread to the point where literally like it seems like everyone has it, and it's like, no, this should not be happening. Like,
You're
why
right,
is this
but do you
happening?
think that maybe there's other causes? Maybe there is an uptick in people who genuinely have depression. Maybe there's a reason for that. And I want to get to that, but let me just quickly clarify here what we were talking about a second ago in regards to the doctors. So it does seem that there is a possibility that doctors who are um, not financially, it says doctors paid by the medical industry may still, hold on, wait. Um, payments may cause prescribing. Receiving payments from a drug company may lead a physician to prescribe more of that company's drug. So, in some cases, you're actually correct. I will correct myself. In most cases, especially if you're using federal healthcare programs, so if you're using Medicaid or something, then that would be completely illegal. But in the private industry, it sounds like that is somewhat a possibility. However, in most cases, it's not that black and white. There might be some influences there, but it
Uh,
comes down to whether or not you trust your own doctor. And it also depends as to whether or not what kind of medication they're prescribing, etc. So, like, even if there's a problem with them over prescribing some of these medications, that doesn't mean that depression is fake, and that doesn't mean that the medication itself can not be beneficial at times, right?
mhm.
So
Wait,
there's
okay, sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, so like even if doctors are incentivized to overprescribe certain medications, that would be bad. We can have a conversation about how that could be a problem, but that does not then translate to depression isn't real or these meds just don't work. The medication could be effective for a large amount of people, and doctors could also be overprescribing it.
Yeah, I think that that's very, that's pretty obvious considering the fact that at the end of the day, the medication companies, like it's literally a business. And as we know, capitalistic businesses, they don't care about your mental health. They literally just are trying to sell things.
So do you think
Um,
that maybe that has something to do with the rise of depression? The ruthless capitalism that we live under right now, this idea that if you're not working, pretty much constantly, that you're unproductive or that you have to be working really, really hard just to make enough money to get by, like that can absolutely lead to prolonged stress, which can contribute to depression. We want to talk about social media use. This is the first generation that's been raised almost entirely on social fucking media. And
yeah,
there's so much research showing that social media use is correlated with higher likelihood of depression, more depressive symptoms, more anxiety, etc. So like when you say like
yeah,
it seems like everybody now has depression. First of all, that's not true. I think it's like 60% of Americans. So it's a huge proportion, but it's not everybody. And then there are a lot of other explanations. Like, I don't think that the evil pharma companies are deceiving everybody into thinking they're sad when they're not. Like,
mhm,
that's not really how it works. And then last but
Yeah,
not least, if you have a problem with capitalism, are you in favor of like a public healthcare option as I am?
um, I'm I'm actually in support of capitalism, but that doesn't mean that I support like pharma companies just selling things that don't that aren't for the betterment of the people. I'm in support of capitalism. I think capitalism is nature. I think that's natural selection. I think that's how things should be.
Okay. I mean, I wouldn't go that far. I also think that capitalism is pretty good, but I also recognize that there's problems with it, particularly some of these large industries. I don't like quote unquote big pharma. I don't like that there exists an industry that is unironically profiting off of sick people. That's fucked up and it's
Yeah,
disgusting. So
yeah,
I tend to advocate for a public healthcare option, which is right in line with social democrat policies. So
yeah.
I would hope though that you'd kind of
Um,
be in general in favor of the same thing because it is a little hypocritical if you're not, but then you're also complaining about capitalism.
well, who knows that? Like, I haven't researched like the social like uh I don't know thing about pharma or whatever, but who knows that if like we convert to this new like governmental thing that all of a sudden they're not going to be corrupt. Like I don't think that's the case. Like I don't think it's
Well,
about
the
this.
well, hold on, wait, because
What was that? Go ahead.
why would they be corrupt in the first place, at least currently, right? It's for profit. So if we had
Yeah,
a
of
public
course.
healthcare option, then that healthcare would be government provided, funded by the government, which is ultimately funded by our tax dollars. So there's not the profit incentive there. So yes, like
Okay, but
anything could have corruption, literally anything. But it's less
mhm.
likely that there's going to be at least financial corruption in a government provided healthcare system because the incentive for profit is no longer there. Not to mention the last thing I'll say, sorry, I don't want to take too much time talking here, but the last thing I'll say really quickly is in these other Nordic countries, they have a public healthcare option. And those people have far better mental health. They are generally happier. There's higher rates of economic mobility, etc. So there's a lot of benefits that comes from having access to healthcare, which is kind of a obvious fact.
Mhm. Yeah, I've heard this. I've heard this kind of point a lot from like people on the left or like socialists or whatever, like Hasanabi or whatever. They say that like your life is like significantly better if you can have access to healthcare. And my question is, sorry, I'm going kind of off topic from depression, but my question is like is like can it really be free? Because how can anything actually be free? Because if you're making healthcare free, then who is getting paid? Like who's getting paid to do that work?
Yeah, I mean, you would be paid
Like a in
through tax
proportionate,
dollars still. It would still be paid through tax
so
dollars.
it's not free.
Well, it's not free in the sense that there needs to obviously be a collective putting in money, but it's free in the sense that maybe if you yourself individually are poorer than average, you have access to that regardless of how much you've paid into it via taxes. That's what makes it ultimately a benefit. So, like, for example, I'm okay paying more taxes if it means I got a form of healthcare. I would be okay with that because if I were saving money on private healthcare, it would kind of balance out. So I would be okay with that. But right now that's not how it is.
Yeah.
So I'm looking over this too. I know we have to move off the prescription thing, but it does seem as though it is illegal for a physician to receive payment for referring a patient for a service that will be paid in whole or in part by federal healthcare program. They also might be incentivized to suggest or recommend certain drugs. However, it would be medical malpractice, therefore, it'd be illegal to prescribe medication that is not actually needed for the sake of profit. So if the doctor genuinely doesn't think you have depression, you haven't actually met the criteria for being clinically diagnosed with depression, but they still go ahead and give you antidepressants because behind the scenes they're incentivized by the pharmaceutical company, that would be medical malpractice and it would be a crime.
Well, I'm not saying that they I'm not saying that you like, for example, a person might like literally not identify as depressed, and yet they still give the medication. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that they have made depression so relatable to the point where, like, to the point where it's become really easy to sell the pills. And like, first of all, like, in the first place, they made depression very relatable. It's not like they're these people that are literally clinically depressed, or sorry, that are literally not clinically depressed, and they're still getting medication. I'm saying that they've made the definition of depression so relatable, and all the
But
symptoms
that's
of
always been
depression.
what depression has been, right? So like it's not like
Yeah.
now what it means to have depression is sometimes you're sad. Like the criteria for being diagnosed with depression has pretty much been steady for as long as I can remember. I would have to look up like has it
Yeah.
changed? What's different now? But like consistent low mood, thoughts of suicide, excessive feelings of anxiety and guilt. These are this is the symptom of depression. This is what to expect.
Yeah, but I like, the definition of depression has like always been the same. But what I'm saying is, all those things that you just said, like, anyone would tell you that they've gone through that.
Because there's a difference between going through a time in which you experience that and then consistently feeling like that.
Yeah, but there's so many reasons why maybe someone is constant, like, even if they're constantly feeling it, they're constantly feeling those things, like, that could very much still be caused by their own doing.
But even if it is, that doesn't mean necessarily that treatment isn't necessary, right?
I do think that the treatment would not be beneficial for you at all if that's the case, because if you are the one that caused it, if you, like, voluntarily, made all those decisions, then you don't deserve a fix. You don't deserve like.
That's a really fucked up mindset, though, because a lot of people have made mistakes. Why should they not deserve a chance to rectify those mistakes and live a better life? If somebody's made a bad
Well,
mistake by becoming a drug addict, I don't think that it's our place to say, well, you made a bad choice, so fuck you. No more, no medication for you. Whether or not you made a poor decision that led to you developing depression or not is a secondary problem. Now, it's true that if you are engaged consistently in a behavior that is continuing your depression, that giving medication may not be beneficial because you're still engaged in a harmful behavior. However, I don't know where the fuck this idea is coming from that like you don't deserve treatment. That's pretty
well,
fucked up.
the thing about that, I didn't say that. Okay, but the thing about that is, I didn't say that people don't deserve, a chance to start over. I think all I said was people don't deserve a, like, this kind of, like, with the snap of a finger, like this fix.
But it's not a
Because,
fix.
like, if you're literally, yeah,
It's
I
not
know
just
how
like a
you'd say
magic
that, but
pill. It's not just like a magic pill that you pop and then everything's all better. If you're a drug addict, which seems to be
of
the
course.
example we keep going back to, if you're a drug addict who has depression because you've consistently been using drugs, you're not just like given a pill and then told to have fun and be on your merry way. Usually you have to go through rehab. You have to withdrawal and detox from that drug. Then you probably would benefit significantly from therapy or something. And then maybe later on medication would be introduced. And mind you, medication takes what, 3 to 6 weeks minimum to even start to feel effects. So it's not like you just pop a pill and in 30 minutes you're all better.
Yeah, I know, but at the same time, like, my point is, like, it's not necessarily about the time that it takes. It's about the fact that you are the one, not specifically you, but you are the one that literally, in this example, like, we're talking about maybe a person who uh literally, I don't know, developed depression from their own decisions or their own habits. If you did that yourself, you don't deserve. And it's not about me deciding that they don't deserve it. It's the fact that it literally won't work, because you you did it yourself, right? You made those decisions, And so taking a pill is not going to solve that. What's going to solve that is taking personal accountability and walking yourself out of those bad habits
I
instead
agree.
of
I agree, but if you're engaged in a bad
okay.
habit like drug use, and now you've taken personal accountability and walked yourself out of that habit, and you're no longer a heavy drug user or a drug user, and you still have depression because of the previous drug use causing blunted dopamine response or some shit, then medication might be needed at that point. This is the thing is a lot of the Sneeko at Tate fans always have like the exact same perception for some reason that it's like, don't do anything, no personal accountability necessary. It's nothing ever is your fault. You are literally a perfect angel. Take this magic pill, feel better, bye-bye. Like that's not how it is. It's like
No, no, no.
go through therapy, do what you need to do to get off drugs, withdraw from those drugs. Take accountability for the fact that you made bad choices that have put you in the negative place that you are. And then also, if needed down the line, take antidepressants if that's been prescribed, etc.
I think I'm not sure if taking medication equates to personal responsibility. It does in the sense where you're kind of like admitting your wrongs and saying, "Okay, I'm wrong about this, and let's fix it." Like you're coming
But
in
why
it
can't
with
you do that
maybe the
and
right
the
mindset, but
medication? Why can't you do that with the right mindset? Take the personal accountability, and then if you still have the depression, talk to a doctor. And if they prescribe you a medication, take the medication. I don't understand.
well, before we just acknowledge that these doctors can literally um, sell you something for literally just profit. So I
No,
wouldn't
no, no,
go
no,
as
no,
far
no,
as to
no,
say
no.
you should
Wrong.
take
We
it.
have not established that. We established that sometimes doctors can be incentivized by certain drug manufacturers to recommend or suggest that drug if the patient actually meets the criteria to be treated. They cannot just tell you you have depression so that they can give you some drugs. That would be against the law. So
Okay,
again, we
but
can have
at the end of
problems
the
with the
day,
profit incentive. We have problems with the profit incentive. I have problems with it too. However,
Mhm.
you're not just going to be put on antidepressants because the doctor wants a quick paycheck. You would only be put on antidepressants if you first meet the clinical diagnosis for depression. So when you say depression isn't real, that is just objectively false because you can look at literal brain scans and depression is in fact real. And then when you say they don't really deserve it or they need to like earn the help, I think that that's really a detrimental mindset as well because you can work hard and take the necessary steps to be accountable and try and get better from depression. And of course, stop engaging in bad habits that are exacerbating that depression. But you might still need medication later on. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Mm. Okay. Um, yeah, I think. Sorry to get off of topic
Well,
a little bit,
I am
not too
probably
much.
gonna wrap up the combo here pretty shortly, if that's cool with you. But
Okay,
I
I want to
kind
bring
of
up this.
feel like you might want to, I don't know, walk back what you said, that depression's kind of not real. It sort of is real. Like it's not a social construct if you can see literal brain scans. That's not a social construct.
Okay, well, I want to bring this up, which
Well,
is,
hold on, wait. So then depression
well,
is real, right? It doesn't mean everybody that says they have depression is in fact depressed, but depression as an actual clinical diagnosis is real.
yeah, because they made a definition, and if people fit in that definition, then yeah, they have depression because they fit in the box of depression. So yes.
Oh my God, you're not getting it. No, it's not that we just made up some arbitrary box and then say if you fit there, now you get to take medicine. It's that these are people who consistently want to kill themselves, have low mood, zero motivation, lack of concentration, loss of interest in previous enjoyable hobbies or whatever. We're seeing like massive problems for these people, and their quality of life is massively decreasing. So it's not just we made up a box. It's that here exist some
Mhm.
symptoms. We have, as humans, have collectively decided that we are going to diagnose this list of symptoms as a thing called depression. That doesn't mean depression is fake. You
Mhm.
realize that you could make the same argument for men and women and males and females, right? Like, if I got up here and said, males and females, biological males and biological females, they're fake because we as humans have decided to label somebody with a vagina, this set of hormones, breasts, we've decided to label that female. But that doesn't mean that the actual biological part is socially constructed, because it's not. There would exist animals or people with vaginas and penises, whether humans interpret it that way or not. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, I understand 100% what you mean, and I agree. Uh, so yeah, to walk that back, kind of, um, I guess my position is like, I guess my philosophy on life is I don't buy into the idea that there can be an irrational force on your life that makes you be depressed, like just out of nowhere. Like, because you've said, I've heard your debates with Andrew Tate fans, and you said that it's an irrational like thing on your life, and I'm just thinking like, hold on, what is causing it? Like, you're basically saying that it's literally just coming out of nowhere,
Yeah,
and that's
that's
not rational at all.
I know, but that's why it's depression. Is like, if I'm saying I feel depressed right now, as in colloquially, I feel sad, right? Okay, why,
Mhm.
Hunter? Because my grandma died yesterday. Well, it's
Yeah,
rational
that's
to
not
feel
depression.
sad. Right, it's rational to feel sad if your
Yeah,
grandma has died. That is a
yeah.
rational response. However, if I say, I have a really good life, I make a lot of money, I have a family that loves me and supports me, but for some reason I still feel super fucking sad, I never feel motivated to do anything, and things that I used to enjoy doing are no longer pleasurable for me. That's now something different. That's a problem because there is no direct cause. That's why it's depression.
Yeah, but I think that even in that situation, you are still doing something, or there's something in your life, or something that you're lacking, or something that is making you feel this way. It's not
What
just
if you're
like,
lacking serotonin? What if the
okay,
reason is
do you
you're
believe
lacking serotonin, so you need a serotonin reinhibitor, aka an antidepressant? Like, what if that's
do
the
you believe in the
cause?
chemical? Do you believe that you can have a chemical imbalance in your brain?
Well, the chemical imbalance term is outdated, so no, it's not really a chemical imbalance as much as it's imbalances and whatnot in regards to neurotransmitters.
Okay, but you said you have a lack of serotonin. That is a chemical imbalance, is it not?
Yeah, I mean, I guess in some cases, but I'm not saying depression is purely a chemical imbalance. There's a lot of different factors that play a role there. There was a recent study that came out that showed that serotonin deficiency is not the sole contributor for depression. And that's true.
Okay,
It's not
but
always. Sometimes it's dopamine, sometimes it's serotonin, sometimes it's problems with the hippocampus, like what we were just looking at with the brain scans.
yeah, uh, yeah, that's true. That like most depression is not caused by like deficiency of serotonin. While, but at the same time, the chemical imbalance talking point is like has been like literally so widespread to like so many people when they don't even know what they're talking about. And I read this article or study, whatever, you can look it up. It's like debunking the whole chemical imbalance theory. And I just find it crazy and like funny how like it got debunked, yet like there were so many people that believed it. And that's why I think that this is a problem in relevance to like the social contagion aspect of it,
But
because
it's okay.
kids hear this
Okay.
and they
Okay, hold on. First and foremost, there actually is a social contagion element when we're talking about depression. However, it's the same thing I say
yeah,
about gender
okay.
dysphoria and all these other conditions. It's not about whether or not there's a social contagion, it's about whether or not the doctor is able to adequately diagnose. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, um, you know what? I forgot the second thing I was going to say. But yeah, no, like the social contagion thing doesn't actually prove anything.
Okay.
It doesn't mean anything.
You s-
Oh, yeah, sorry.
you
And you were
said that
talking about the serotonin deficiency thing. You're right that a lot of
uh
people were wrong about the whole chemical imbalance thing. That's an outdated way of describing it. You're
but
correct.
people don't know that.
Well,
People don't
people
know
are
it's
starting
outdated.
to know it. I mean, it's apparently pretty common knowledge amongst
I
like
don't hear anyone
psychologists
talking about it.
already. So there's that. But I don't know. I just don't know what is the point you're making. The only thing that study found is that serotonin deficiency is not the sole contributor for depression. It can still play a role. It just might not be the sole contributor. And I'm not
Right.
surprised at all because, like what we just said, there are other problems with the human brain that can contribute to depression.
Yeah, you asked my point, and my point is how you said before 60% of, I think you said 60% of adults have depression, and that is way too much. That should not be the case at all. And to think that they are all, like literally 60% of them, like all of them are experiencing this irrational like
Yeah.
thing that can't be explained is so stupid to me.
Maybe there's a reason for it. Maybe it can be explained. Maybe it's something to do
Yeah,
with
there is a
social
reason.
media. Maybe it's something to do with
Of
capitalism.
course, yeah, 100%. I fully agree with you on that.
Okay.
Social media is definitely a problem.
Right. So then there could be a cause, but again, the way in which depression is irrational is not like there is never any cause for it, but rather maybe you're not on social media now, but you still are feeling depressed. The social media may have completely worsened your depression, but now you have depression and it's not going away. So then it would be in the irrational sort of side of things. But I don't know if we're going to get too much further than this. I want to speak to Speak Easy next. Um, but I don't know. I think that you need to think this through a little bit more because when you come on here and say it's not real, but then you kind of have to walk it back and say, okay, well, it is real in some cases. I just don't listen to Andrew Tate on this stuff. It's true that you can work yourself out of being sad, but you can't really work yourself out of depression.
I think that I like you a lot because you call out people when you debate them. You call out like Republicans or whoever it may be, transphobic people or whatever, and you call out when they like are coping and stuff in the arguments. And I
Mhm.
feel like with depression, if you're taking an antidepressant, that is the biggest cope ever.
I think that is completely false. I think telling yourself that you can just gym bro your way out of depression is the biggest cope. Taking a medicine that's been empirically shown to reduce depression is not a cope when again you're dealing with a real significant mental illness. It would be a cope if I woke up today and I was feeling kind of sad. So I took 3 Adderall to help me feel better, bro. Yeah, that would be a cope. You'd be using drugs as a coping mechanism. That would be bad. Being consistently and persistently depressed and wanting to kill yourself, etc., and then taking medication that takes 6 weeks to actually start helping is not a cope. That's taking accountability. That's recognizing a problem and moving forward with what has been shown to be one of the best treatments available.
Okay. Let's say if I didn't believe in depression as a whole, and being, it ended up making my life better in the long run, would you be okay with that? Like, would you like accept that or like agree with that?
Say the first part again. If you were what?
If I believe that depression is not real as a whole, like altogether, if I believe that, and later on in my life, like that belief has made my life a lot better, would you be like in favor of that?
If you aren't taking pharmaceutical grade drugs and you're able to go outside more and work out and whatnot, and that's helping your depression, then yeah, I'm fine with that. Pharmaceutical drugs are not the answer for everybody. And I'm not even of the opinion that like instantly you should get on medication. A lot of people have depression in America for vitamin D deficiency. So it's true when people say
Yeah,
go outside more, that can help depression.
exactly.
That's true. That is true. But sometimes it's not that simple. Sometimes it's not as simple as, well, just go outside for a walk in the woods, yeehaw. Sometimes there's actually a problem with your brain, and just going outside, getting enough vitamin D is not necessarily going to fix that. Which is
Okay.
again why I keep saying the same exact crap, which is just do both. Go outside, exercise, eat healthy. These are massive beneficiaries when we're talking about depression. But also, if that's not helping enough, maybe talk to your doctor about therapy. Maybe talk to your doctor about medication. It's not either or. Really, if the doctor says you should go on medication, it would be both.
Yeah, I think that there is no question as to I think that if we think about way back then with like cavemen and stuff when they had to like go hunt for animals and stuff and they had
Mhm.
to like do a bunch of stuff to survive, I think that it's no question as to like why they didn't feel depressed, why they didn't have depression.
Yeah,
I think
because when
that
you're
it's
in a primal
definitely with
state of searching for like food for survival, or if your main objective is just survive another day, don't get eaten and find shelter, yeah, you're probably not going to like have time to really sit down and assess your mental well-being. But that's just how it is. When you're in a more primal
but it's
state, searching for more instinctual necessities, again, like food and shelter, you're less likely to notice if you have depression even because your objective is not on something like that. It's a higher
yeah, I don't
cognitive
think it's
issue. Right. So just to sorry, my chat defined it for me. Thank you, chat. Depression is a higher cognitive issue. So we're in a place where we have our food, we have our shelter, we're not really scared of getting eaten by a lion. We're pretty good in that department. So now we're able to focus on higher cognitive issues. So just if cavemen didn't have depression or something doesn't actually mean depression is fake.
okay. Yeah, I I saw one of your videos debating an Andrew Tate fan, and the top comment on your video was, "Dear Andrew Tate fan, depression is caused by a chemical imbalance in your brain." And I think that like that could be so harmful. That can literally like destroy someone's life if they believe that. I feel like that is so harmful, and I'm just trying to call out
Well,
that
no, because that's
your
just a
community is kind of like
no, that's a misunderstanding of how depression works. If somebody has depression for real, if they're diagnosed with depression, then whether or not it's a chemical imbalance or not is aside the point. The point they're getting at is that it's chronic. It's a chronic problem. So you're far more likely to destroy somebody's uh, life by telling them that they don't actually need to go to the doctor, nothing's wrong with them, they just need to go outside and lift some weights. So, like,
Mhm.
I mean, even earlier, you said like most all medications you're against. Like, that's pretty harmful. And then the last thing I'll bring up here is
Well,
what
if you think
recommended is Maslow's hierarchy of needs is what I think we're talking about here. So there's psychological, then there's safety, belonging and love, esteem, cognitive, aesthetic, then self-actualization. So if you're down on safety or belonging and love, down at the bottom end of the hierarchy, you're probably not as interested in self actualization and asking questions. Who am I as a person? What is my goal in life? Psychological needs: air, water, food, shelter, sleep, clothing, reproduction. Safety
Mhm.
needs: personal security, employment, resources, health, property, love and belonging, friendship, intimacy, family, sense of connection. Like, do you think in the olden days when the cavemen were struggling to find their next bit of food and water, that they're thinking like, why are me and my wife not really connecting emotionally? No, they're focused on surviving.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that an emotional
Yeah.
connection with your wife is fake.
Yeah, of course, and I wanna expand on that, which is, like, I don't think it's necessarily that they didn't have time to think about it. I think that it's because they didn't need to, because they were already happy. Because I feel like if you earn something, if you actually go and earn something and then get the benefits from it, you worked for it, and that's what makes you happy. But today, in today's age, it's so different. We've strayed so far from that to the point where uh everything that we get is not necessarily what we deserve. Like, for example, when people scroll on TikTok all day, they don't deserve the constant entertainment. They don't deserve the constant dopamine, since all they're doing is literally just using their thumb to scroll. So it's an inefficient amount of working versus what you deserve. And I feel like what makes humans happy generally is getting something that you worked for. But in
I
today's
agree.
age, people don't.
You're right. People are very obsessed with like that quick and easy dopamine hit rather than actually working hard for stuff. I agree with that. But this is literally aside the point from depression. This has nothing to do with that. All that this hierarchy of needs thing demonstrates is that when you are focused on more primal desires, like food, shelter, water, you're not going to be focused on other issues that the human experience can accompany because you're so focused on the bare minimum. Just like the example I just gave. If I'm busy finding food, I'm probably not going to stop and wonder if my emotional connection with my wife is actually really as good as it can be because I'm busy focusing on getting food and living through the next day. But it doesn't mean that an
Yeah,
emotional
but
connection is fake. It doesn't mean that having an emotional connection now is getting something you don't deserve.
it definitely invalidates that though, because
No,
uh
it doesn't, man. I think that we need to just end it here. It's the combo's starting to make me a little more depressed. Every time I talk with the Andrew Tate, every time I talk with the Andrew Tate Stain fans, it's always the same thing. It's like depression is fake. Okay, well sometimes depression can be real. To okay, well why don't you do stuff to make depression better? Okay, well then medicine bad. To why didn't the caveman feel depressed? Like it's the same old same old. I know you said you were going to try to bring me something new, but I'm sorry my friend, you did not. You brought me further depression. I'm going to have
no,
to
but
go and
the
get another
brain
pill
scan
now.
thing was different. The brain scan thing was different because my point was that I don't see how the brain scan thing proves that depression is real at all because everyone has different brains.
You're right, but there's a standard way in which a human brain operates. But and if you see
Okay.
reductions in the
And
use of certain parts of the brain that control emotions and feelings of well-being and cognitive decisions and or excuse me, executive functions, then that can be a sign of depression. So yes, everybody has a different brain as far as like they think differently, they have their own experiences, etc. But there is a static human brain, like the default human brain, that we can then compare to depressed brains and see a significant difference.
yeah,
So I
we
think
like so
I gotta end the call now, man. I feel like you might be
okay.
a little bit
Nice
of a
talking to you.
bot. Listen, you're a nice guy. You came here in good faith. I appreciate that. I'm glad things didn't get like super heated, but we're starting to go into circles. And you're really a bot. You're a bot for Big Daddy Andrew Tate. You need to take a step back, think through what you're
No.
saying, and a lot of what Andrew Tate says. Go to the gym, work out. Yeah, good advice. That doesn't mean that
Mhm.
antidepressants are fake.
Okay. Well, I like talking to you.
All right,
You're a good guy.
see you later.